Sarah's hands trembled as she wiped down the last table at Romano's diner, her third shift of the day. The clock showed 9:47 p.m., and her feet ached with a pain that had become her constant companion. Her phone buzzed, another text from the babysitter asking when she'd be home. Her 7-year-old daughter Emma was already asleep, and Sarah had missed tucking her in again. The guilt crashed over her like a wave, but she pushed it down. Bills didn't pay themselves, and ever since her husband left them for a younger woman 2 years ago, every dollar mattered. She was about to hang up her apron when she noticed him, an elderly man sitting alone in the corner booth, staring at the menu with clouded, confused eyes. Most servers would have groaned at the late customer, but something about his frail frame and lost expression tugged at Sarah's heart. She walked over with a gentle smile. "Good evening, sir. Can I help you with something?" The old man looked up, his weathered face breaking into a grateful smile. I'm not sure what to order anymore. Everything's changed so much." His voice cracked with loneliness that Sarah recognized all too well. That night, Sarah didn't just take his order. She sat down and talked with him, learning his name was Henry and that he'd been coming to this diner since 1962. She recommended the pot roast, his late wife's favorite, and stayed a few extra minutes to keep him company. When he struggled to count his change with shaking hands, she quietly covered the difference from her own tips. Henry became a regular fixture in Sarah's life. Every Tuesday and Friday evening, he'd shuffle into Romano's diner and Sarah would light up. She'd save the corner booth for him, remember how he liked his coffee, black with 2 sugars, and always made time to sit with him for a few minutes. She learned about his wife Margaret, who'd passed 3 years ago, his son who died in a car accident, and his grandson, Marcus, who was too busy climbing the corporate ladder in Manhattan to visit. "You remind me of my Margaret," Henry told her one evening, his eyes misty. "She had your kindness, your light." Sarah would brush off the compliments, insisting she wasn't doing anything special. But to Henry, she was everything. She was the daughter he'd lost, the family he no longer had, the reason he still found purpose in getting out of bed. Months passed, and their friendship deepened. Sarah brought Emma to meet Henry one Saturday afternoon. The old man's face transformed as he listened to Emma chatter about her school play and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. He pulled out his wallet and gave Emma a crisp $20 bill. "For your education fund," he insisted, despite Sarah's protests. When Henry caught pneumonia that winter, Sarah visited him at the hospital every day after her shifts, bringing homemade soup and reading to him from his favorite Louis L'Amour westerns. The nurses assumed she was family. In every way that mattered, she was. One Friday evening in late spring, Sarah was serving Henry his usual pot roast and mashed potatoes when the diner's door burst open. A tall man in an expensive charcoal suit strode in, his leather shoes clicking against the linoleum floor. Behind him followed 2 stern-looking individuals, carrying briefcases, clearly lawyers. The entire diner fell silent. "There you are," the man said sharply. His eyes locked on Henry. "Do you have any idea how worried I've been? I've been calling you for weeks." Henry's face paled. "Marcus?" Sarah's stomach dropped. This was the grandson Henry had mentioned, the one too busy to visit, too important to call. And now he was here, radiating anger and something else Sarah couldn't quite identify. Entitlement, perhaps. Marcus barely glanced at Sarah as he approached the booth. "Grandpa, we need to talk. Now, these lawyers need to speak with you about some very serious matters." One of the lawyers, a woman with severe features and a clipboard, stepped forward. "Mr. Henry Patterson, we've been authorized by your grandson, Marcus Patterson, to conduct a welfare check and review your financial competency. There are concerns about your ability to manage your affairs." Sarah felt her blood run cold. She looked at Henry, who suddenly seemed even smaller and more fragile than usual. "I don't understand," Henry said softly. "Marcus, what's this about?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Grandpa, I've been reviewing your bank statements. In the past 6 months, you've withdrawn nearly $40,000 in cash. Your accounts are being drained. I have a responsibility to protect you from people who might be taking advantage of your condition." His eyes finally landed on Sarah, and the accusation in them was unmistakable. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. "I would never—" "Really?" Marcus cut her off. Because my grandfather has been coming here multiple times a week, and suddenly his money is disappearing. You're a waitress, a single mother. I'm sure you could use the extra cash." The diner erupted in whispers. Sarah felt the walls closing in. Her manager, Tom, emerged from the kitchen, concern etched on his face. Regular customers who'd witnessed Sarah's kindness to Henry for months looked on in shock. "Marcus, please." Henry's voice was stronger now, filled with something Sarah had never heard before. Anger. "Sarah has never taken a penny from me. She's the kindest person I know. She pays for half my meals without me even knowing. She's family." "Family?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "Grandpa, you've been giving money away to strangers while I've been working myself to death trying to secure your future. I'm trying to protect you." The second lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. "Mr. Patterson, we have paperwork here that would place your grandson as your legal guardian and power of attorney. Given your age and apparent cognitive decline, we believe this is in your best interest." Sarah watched Henry's hands shake, but this time not from age, from rage. The old man stood up, steadier than she'd seen him in weeks. "My cognitive decline?" Henry's voice rang through the silent diner. "Is that what you think?" "Let me tell you something, Marcus. Every penny I withdrew, I spent exactly as I intended. I donated to Emma's school fund because Sarah's daughter deserves the education her mother can't afford while working 3 jobs. I paid Mrs. Chen's rent for 2 months when her husband died because Sarah told me about it. I covered the surgery for Tom's dog because this diner has been my second home. I've been giving money to people who actually need it, who actually care about something beyond themselves." Marcus's confident facade cracked slightly. "But Grandpa—" "I'm not finished." Henry's eyes blazed. "For 3 years after your grandmother died, you called me twice. Twice, Marcus. You were too busy with your deals and your clients. But Sarah? She sat with me when I had nowhere to go. She listened to my stories. She brought her daughter to meet me. She made me feel human again. And now you show up with lawyers to accuse her of stealing from me?" The silence in the diner was deafening. Henry turned to the lawyers. "I am of sound mind. I have been evaluated by my doctor regularly. And I'm telling you right now, leave my restaurant and take my grandson with you." "Grandpa, I was just trying to—" Marcus's voice broke, and suddenly, Sarah saw past the expensive suit to a scared young man who'd lost his father, buried himself in work to avoid grief, and convinced himself that money was the only way to show love. "You were trying to control," Henry said, but his voice softened slightly. "Because that's what you do, son. You control deals, you control outcomes, but you can't control people's hearts or their choices." Marcus stood there, his carefully constructed world crumbling. Then, to everyone's surprise, his shoulders sagged. "I thought I was losing you too," he whispered. "Like Dad, like Grandma. I saw the money disappearing and I panicked." "I thought someone was hurting you." Henry's expression softened. He reached out and placed a weathered hand on his grandson's arm. "Then you should have called me, Marcus. You should have visited. Money isn't love and lawyers aren't family." Sarah, who had been frozen in shock, finally found her voice. "Mr. Patterson, Henry, I need you to know I never expected anything. I just wanted to help." "I know, dear." Henry smiled at her, then looked back at Marcus. "That's what real kindness looks like. No expectations, no strings, just humanity." The lawyers, sensing the shift, quietly began packing their briefcases. The woman with the clipboard cleared her throat. "Mr. Patterson appears to be competent and aware. We have no grounds to proceed." As they left, Marcus remained standing in the middle of Romano's diner, looking lost. Henry gestured to the booth. "Sit down, grandson. Let me introduce you properly to Sarah and tell you about the family I've found here." Over the next hour, something beautiful happened. Marcus listened, really listened, as Henry shared stories about Sarah's kindness, about Emma's dreams, about the community that had formed around this worn booth in a modest diner. He heard about the soup during his pneumonia, the conversations that kept loneliness at bay, the simple act of being present. When Sarah's shift finally ended, Marcus stood up and extended his hand to her. "I owe you an enormous apology. I made terrible assumptions." Sarah shook his hand, seeing the genuine remorse in his eyes. "You were scared of losing him. I understand that." "Still," Marcus insisted, "I should have known better. Grandpa always taught me to lead with kindness. And I forgot that lesson. He pulled out his business card. I want to make this right. My firm does pro bono legal work. If you ever need help with anything, custody agreements, financial planning, anything, please call me. 3 months later, Sarah received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a check, not from Henry or Marcus, but from a scholarship fund that had been established in Margaret Patterson's name. Emma had been awarded a full scholarship for private school, funded by Henry's donations and matched by Marcus's firm. The note inside read, "Margaret always said that kindness creates ripples. Thank you for teaching an old man that he wasn't forgotten, and for teaching a young man what really matters. You saved more than one life at that diner. With love and gratitude, Henry and Marcus." Sarah cried as she held the letter, Emma peering over her shoulder. "Mama, why are you crying?" "Because sometimes," Sarah whispered, pulling her daughter close, "the smallest acts of kindness come back to us in the biggest ways. Remember that, baby. Always lead with love." At Romano's diner, Henry still came every Tuesday and Friday, but now Marcus joined him, learning to slow down, to listen, to see the world through his grandfather's eyes. They became regulars together, and Sarah made sure their coffee was always hot and their booth was always ready. In a world that often felt cold and transactional, a single mom, an old man, and eventually his grandson proved that humanity still thrived in the smallest moments, in a shared meal, a listening ear, and the courage to see beyond our own fears to the needs of others.